the technology that I couldn't get to work, Bloom, I feel so good. I've made it work now.
Yeah. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Ah. That leads us to JJ McCarthy. Let's get to it.
You got a team, here's a word to the wise. You want to dominate your league? Go to football, guys.
Football. I'm living in a fantasy. Football. Got everybody mad at me. Football. Cause every game I had to win. Football. I gotta be a champion. Football. I'm living in a fantasy.
And away we go. It is the Audible. It is Cecil, Lammey, Sigmund, Bloom, and I am live in Orlando at the NFL owners meetings. And Bloom, I've got a brain dump for you. But first, JJ McCarthy going off the board at 2 is not going to happen. So why are we getting the rumor that that could actually happen with the Washington Commanders?
I don't have a good working theory for that, to be honest. I don't know if Washington is maybe trying to create a market for their pick. You have a lot of indefinite language from Washington, from New England about, well, we're going to listen to offers. We're going to listen. We're open to other ideas. So I don't know if they're trying to create a trade market where, hey, you might have Drake Maye, you might have Jayden Daniels number 2, but if you know the team that is most desperate to trade up has JJ McCarthy number 2, maybe you're creating a market there. And I think that even though it's not April yet, Cease, maybe we need to move up lying season. It's another NFL rule change. The lying season starts in March now.
Yeah, I think that's the case as well. And being at the scouting combine, like that's where more bad information or off information. I don't know if it's more media coverage. I don't know if it's teams playing the PR game or the access game, honestly. But the number 2 pick will be Jayden Daniels. I can almost assure you of that. If that changes, I will let you know. But Adam Peters, the Commanders GM, loves Jayden Daniels. But Jayden Daniels has his pro day. I think it's down next to you, Bloom, tomorrow or Wednesday. Wednesday? What is today? Tuesday? Wednesday. So tomorrow, yes. Tomorrow, Jayden Daniels pro day. And that's where we get the clandestine who's at the pro day, who's not at the pro day. And that'll bring me back to McCarthy. But let's talk about Daniels and what he can do at his LSU pro day.
Yeah, and not much really to change, especially if Washington is already locked in on him. I suppose that it's the soft stuff, the people skills that the pro days are for more than the workout. But I think, we can start to compare and contrast these guys where Daniels has that very high ceiling. He has a lower floor. And also we have Cliff Kingsbury, and that should factor into it, right? You would hope that Adam Peters is going to ask his offensive coordinator, hey, what quarterback would you like to work with? So maybe there's a chance for Washington to see some specific things that might translate more to what Cliff Kingsbury is going to do. But just going back to your original question about McCarthy, the other reason I suppose that this could get out there is for the team that's going to trade with Denver, Minnesota, whoever moves up, the Giants, for JJ McCarthy, it creates potentially a more compensation. So I don't know if there's some collusion or some tricky stuff going on here. But Cecil, I agree with you that the early trend was towards Daniels, and we haven't heard anything specific until yesterday.
Yeah, I don't believe it. I don't believe McCarthy at 2, not at all whatsoever. Now, speaking of McCarthy, I was able to ask Sean Payton. You got to let Sean Payton warm up. I've noticed that. And I think Payton likes me, Bloom. I think if that's, I might be off. I know other Broncos officials that really like me, but that's okay. We're not in a likability contest here. But I'll say this. Once he warmed up, I asked him about pro days because he famously was not at JJ McCarthy's pro day. And none of us knew this. This had not been reported. The news broke yesterday when Sean Payton said, yeah, pro days. And I was watching this quarterback, and he wasn't talking about this year, but he said years ago with the Saints, and there was this quarterback and his teammates weren't around him during the pro day. And he's like, that's odd. So like you can learn a lot of those off things that aren't him throwing everyone looks great at their pro day, except for, we've had a couple of bad pro days, but not many. Like usually it looked awesome. Right. Everyone's awesome.
It's set up for them to do well. That's the point.
Yes. So then Sean Payton says this. I wasn't at JJ's pro day, but we sent him a bunch of homework that night and we worked him out the next day. And Bloom, I swear to God, he looked like a kid in a candy store when he goes, I made him throw all over again. And he gets this like euphoric, like that.
Yeah.
He made him throw again the next day in a private workout that lasted 5 hours. JJ McCarthy could be the top target for the Denver Broncos. Okay. Now, how do they move up? I'm going to talk to Jonathan Gannon this morning. So I'm going to, bring you some information there with Gannon and what the Cardinals may be thinking. I know what New England is thinking, or at least what they're putting out there in some sources and some avenues. But this JJ McCarthy thing, okay, he's not 2. That's Jayden Daniels, but he could be 3 or 4 at the very least.
Yeah, and he could be 3 or 4 to any number of teams. And Jeff Duncan, who's been covering Sean Payton for a long time, Jeff Duncan said when Sean Payton wants a quarterback, he's going to go after that quarterback. So, Duncan's trying to wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And I do think that, again, we have a lot of intrigue here with number 3. You also have Robert Kraft saying, well, Calvin Ridley didn't come to New England because his girlfriend wanted to stay in the South. Oh, and maybe quarterback issues. And whenever you're losing out to a team with Will Levis, not to disrespect Will Levis, but, there's a reason he wasn't a first-round pick. When you're losing out to Will Levis, and wide receivers looking at Will Levis or your quarterback situation, and you believe that factored into missing out on Calvin Ridley, then that maybe gives the Patriots more urgency. So, I think we have a lot more possibilities by the day now when we look at the order the quarterbacks are going to go off the board, when we look at the teams that are going to be involved. And Arizona is a team that's going to be a big winner here, and maybe even the Chargers.
Yeah, and I got to say this about Brian Daboll. One, we've known since January with the good information that they wanted to move up for a quarterback potentially.
Yeah.
And Daboll needs some guidance from our dear friend Mark Weimer, because we'll tell you a little tale about Mark Weimer. We'd go to Vegas for the Football Guys Retreat, and we get to hang out together. Mark Weimer had head, I think blackjack was this game, or poker, right?
Yeah.
Him and Dodds playing poker, something like that. So he would head there in full regalia, but he had these sunglasses that even had the side things that would like cover up the side, and he'd just sit there, right? Like some sort of steampunk, and he loves steampunk, by the way. So shout out Mark Weimer, of course, dear friend, and former football guy. But Brian Daboll this morning, and I didn't get a chance to talk to him. My co-host on Orange Blue Today, Andrew Mason, talked to him because I was talking to Jonathan Gannon, talking around Kevin O'Connell. I got some Vikings information to get to. I know their preference. Daboll clammed up when people like the Drew Lock thing is like, well, Daniel Jones is our starter and Lock, whatever. So the Lock thing wasn't interesting, right? Maybe that's just to make me went like, well, why'd you sign him? Like he might be as good or better than Daniel Jones. That's not saying much, but still, I'm happy for Drew. But like the Lock thing was a non-issue. Like, whatever, Daniel Jones. And then the question started coming in about the rookie quarterbacks. And Daboll clammed up, like he didn't want to say anything. It's like, dude, you have to say something. You have to give us something here. And this is a much better environment. It's my first owners meetings ever in 20 years of being in the media. Never gone to the owners meetings. This is much more valuable than the combine, which was turned into a crap show. Sorry, Joe, with all the stupid questions, the flat earther, whoever that moron was asking Caleb Williams, you afraid to compete? Take his badge. I don't care who it is. I know people have said, be nice to him. No, when you're a moron like that at the combine, I don't want you around, right? You don't deserve it. You're not a professional. You're not there to ask professional questions. But Daboll clamming up when it came to the rookie quarterbacks, Bloom, I was like, God, Brian, could you make it more obvious? You guys want a quarterback and may move up to get it.
Yeah, and maybe that's because he's at the point in his arc where, hey, year 3, you better get some results. Owners' patience start to run out around year 3, certainly by year 4. And you want to insist that Daniel Jones is still the guy. You want to insist that 2022 Daniel Jones, that's the real Daniel Jones. He had a lot of bad things going on around him. That sounds like coping. And I know a lot about coping. That sounds like self-soothing when you know you're not going to get what you want. Because I think, and look, and I'm not saying it's all about job preservation, but I think we all know that if JJ McCarthy were to fall to number 6, and let's take a step back. Cecil, can we take a step back? Because when JJ McCarthy declared, I don't think it was a consensus that he would be a first-round pick. I think that whenever mock drafts started putting him at 12 and 11, people said, wow, that's rich for JJ McCarthy. That's rich. Now we're looking at the Giants sitting at number 6 and saying, if he falls to number 6, maybe they'll get lucky and he will fall to number 6. How quickly these things change. Now, of course, sometimes we find out that the buzz was real, and sometimes we find out that it wasn't. So I think that in the case of the Giants, you're looking at a team now that probably is coping with not having McCarthy as a choice at 6, and also probably still having to give up a lot more than they would want to. Remember, the Jets had to give up, 3 second-round picks to move up from 6 to 3 for Sam Darnold. So yeah, it's a steep price. Now, for Dable, you would get to reset the clock on your doomsday, when am I going to get fired watch. But it sure sounds to me, Cease, like he's emotionally involved in this decision in a way that he conveyed without meaning to.
Yeah. Well, I hope YouTube doesn't demonetize our video because y'all can hear the background music at the hotel
We don't have
lobby here.
Did we get copyright for that?
Something. Yeah. So we got the Ritz-Carlton, the JW Marriott. I'm at the Courtyard. JW and the Ritz is just like right there. But anyways, like Orlando's been great. And last night there was a party, an NFL party. And this is odd, Bloom. I got some, off the record stories because the party is supposed to be off the record. In fact, the NFL kind of hopes that everything said at said parties are off the record.
Right.
But when you talk to people, and you kind of figure out what a guy's looking for in terms of a coach, in terms of the type of player. I did try to get Jonathan Gannon on the record today with some wide receiver questions. He was not budging at all. He said it's a good day to be Monty, agreeing with Sean Payton. Like, trading for is I would even say very likely, Bloom. But it was funny because I tried to get Gannon on the record because in talking to people, I've maybe figured out the type of wide receiver he prefers. One, Kyler Murray, and you're going to see this on our YouTube, on our Football Guys social. Like I'm sending the video. We're going to make a short of this. Kyler Murray, he's super high on, and I buy it. Maybe Gannon's greatest poker player ever. Maybe he's Mark Weimer 2.0. But I buy that he's into Kyler. He obviously loves Trey. But the type of receiver they're looking for may not be Marvin Harrison Jr., as great as he is. Okay? So it comes into preference for Kyler that Jonathan is listening to. But Jonathan would not answer me when I pressed him on which type of receiver. Because there are types with these top 3, with the big 3 at receiver. And honestly, a reason why the Cardinals could move down is because it may be the preference to get a larger bodied receiver, a more physical receiver, a more jump ball receiver, much like Philadelphia has with A.J. Brown, and much like you could get for Kyler with Rome Odunze.
Yes.
Maybe if you move back to 12, you move back to 6, you move back to 8, whatever the number is, Rome Odunze becomes an option for Arizona.
Yeah, we already saw this last year with Monty. Let's call it the Austin Fort, when you trade down and trade back up into the top 10. And you get your player, and you get extra draft capital. And that's how you do it. That's how you play the draft. And Cecil, I agree with you. And I'm going to have Matt Harmon, our nephew. We're going to talk rookie wide receivers. We're going to talk wide receivers. We're going to talk life. We're going to talk all kinds of good stuff tomorrow on the couch with Matt Harmon, 2 p.m. Eastern. Here, catch us on the YouTube channel. Like, comment, subscribe. And in a lot of draft classes, Rome Odunze would be the number 1 prospect.
Easily. Yep.
Easily. Okay. And like you said, Cease, it comes down to preference. I don't think there's an objective way to say that in a vacuum, one of these prospects is better than the other. It depends on what your offense emphasizes. It depends on, like you said, Cease, your quarterback. We can look at what Kyler Murray did statistically with DeAndre Hopkins, or even that there was a push to get DeAndre Hopkins. Okay. The kind of receiver that DeAndre Hopkins is. And again, what would be the knock on Odunze? It would be more, he's not necessarily a burner, or he's not necessarily a receiver who is going to make a lot of things happen after the catch like Malik Neighbors. But one of the players you hear him compared to, and I hear him compared to this player, and the people that do it understand what it means. It's Larry Fitzgerald. And I'm not saying I'm not saying that the memory of Larry Fitzgerald looms over this conversation for Arizona, But I think you're right to talk about quarterback preference. And I think you're right to talk about Arizona really being able to pick their receiver of the three. I think you're going to see for sure quarterback. They can take any of the three at number 4, or they can trade down to a team that's going to take a quarterback, maybe not JJ McCarthy, maybe Drake Maye, and then still trade back up and get the wide receiver they want. But that's probably why Gannon was so tight-lipped about their preferences.
Yeah, very tight-lipped about some preferences. Maybe looser lips from other teams last night at the official off-the-record party. I think that's what I'm going to call it, Bloom, like official off-the-record.
Yeah, that's like legal tampering.
Yeah, what's funny is I'll tell you a private moment. And yeah, 20 years in, whatever. I felt right at home. Kind of sliding around with some billionaires last night. So it's odd. I kind of am surprised at myself, Bloom. I'm like, oh God, like this is the way the other half lives. I'm not used to that, but I felt right at home. So maybe that was the warm welcoming company that I kept last night.
And football is the great equalizer in America, right?
Mm-hmm.
Football, all kinds of differences in upbringing and experiences, in beliefs and ideology. I always come back to Hunter Thompson talking about how he and Richard Nixon, when they would talk football, all those differences would fade into the background. And I think it still is a great equalizer. And if you know ball, you know ball. And I don't care what your net worth is. People who know ball like to hang around other people who know ball.
Yeah, that's cool. And it's kind of that key card, right? That gets you in. So that's a cool key card here in Orlando at the owners meetings. It is the Audible, Cecil, Lammey, and Sigmund Bloom. We certainly appreciate you jumping in. Even from Greece, you were typing in Greece.
Cut and paste.
Greek?
Yeah, Perry is
you got
Greek. From Greece, yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't have my Greek keyboard set up here. I know a few things about Greek letters from doing crossword puzzles and things, the alpha and the omega. But yeah, it's great. Over the years, and that's the thing, Cease, it was our original crew here on the Audible. All over the years, we've had people from Brazil, from Israel, Korea, Japan, all kinds of countries checking in, and it's all just based around us warming ourselves around the fire of the NFL. And I think that's what prepared you to feel comfortable with billionaires.
Would you like to know who the Vikings prefer?
I would, of course. Yeah.
It's Drake Maye.
Yeah. Well, and maybe
Drake Maye. You're hearing that for the first time, by the way, on this show. That is breaking news. I have not put it out there yet. I will today. But I believe, per sources, the preferred quarterback for Minnesota is Drake Maye. So all this JJ McCarthy stuff, McCarthy may go too. He may blah, blah. So you have this battle between Minnesota and Denver. And this is what I've been investigating here. Who's winning the information battle? It is a battle of information. And it seems like the Vikings are dropping them all. Because it's like, now JJ could go too. No, he won't. 3 or 4, maybe. But does Sean Payton prefer Drake Maye himself? That I will seal my lips on that one, Bloom. One, I'm not entirely sure, but I think you have Minnesota and Denver competing for Maye or McCarthy, and I believe Minnesota's let the cat out of the bag. That Maye might be the guy, even though with this look this magic McCarthy stuff. Like, I think they've targeted Maye instead.
Yeah, Alfredo brings up in the chat room that Josh McCown coached Maye in high school. So there's a connection there. And that could go both ways. That could be something that gives them preference, and that could be something that helps them be decisive to go in the other direction. But, that maybe is a part of the puzzle of why are we hearing about JJ McCarthy going as high as number 2? Because if New England, who, again, you have Robert Kraft saying, well, Calvin Ridley didn't come here because his girlfriend wanted him to stay in the South. Oh, yeah, and our quarterback situation. So they might really be desperate at this point and feel like trading out is not an option. Then if you're Minnesota, the game becomes, well, we don't want them to take Drake Maye. We have to somehow through public channels. So maybe there's some counter intelligence going on here. And this is why we enjoy the draft. And hey, the NFL probably loves this because when the number one pick is not in question, you need to have some storylines, some intrigue, or else the first half hour of the draft is not very interesting.
Yeah, I'm trying to find a comment earlier. We had a comment about the rule changes, right?
Oh, yeah.
I don't honestly, and I mean I'm here, so maybe I should be paying more attention to that. But I'm just like, no, D Smitty, our guy, D Smitty, love you, D Smitty.
There's a new kickoff rule. So if you're in return yardage leagues, kickoff return yards are about to spike because now the new kickoff, it's XFL style. So the two opposing sides are going to be squaring off on the returner side of the field. It's going to remove surprise onside kicks. They didn't pass the rule about 4th and 15 or 4th and 20 instead of an onside kick. But now you're going to have a lot more kickoff returns. Kickoff returners are going to be worth more. Special teams. Dan Campbell sounded excited because he knows that special teams are going to play a bigger role now, and that's a place where Detroit puts in a lot of work. Another rule change, this one isn't as sexy or interesting, but I think it could matter for fantasy football. The trade deadline got moved back a week. So now you have one more week for trades. The trade deadline is going to be November 5th this year, and hopefully that means more movement. It means more player value changes, and our Pittsburgh Steelers were the ones that proposed that. So good on you, Steelers.
Wow, it's kind of odd. I'll show you around as I do when I'm on these trips.
Yeah.
Just in the lobby. But I do have a
Welcome to
nice
the courtyard.
cool thing behind me. Something waterfall. I don't know. Water features, right? Is that what we call it? So yeah, just a little stroll. People said I was on the toilet. I'm like, I'm not on the toilet. Okay.
That's gonna be the spin-off from On the Couch.
Yes, on the couch, on the throne.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah.
Trademark it. Anything else, Bloom, before we're at her day, buddy?
No, I think that we finally are in that slow part of free agency. By the way, the other rule change was banning the hip drop tackle, and I get it. Lots of hand wringing. The refs are going to mess it up. Players can't tackle anymore. Turn it into flag football.
It's flag football.
It's going to be fine, folks. It's going to be fine.
You're okay, everybody.
Yeah, it's going to be okay. And I think it's mainly, speaking of fines, there's a Freudian slip for you, Cecil. It's more about fines. I think it's going to be something they're very tentative to call during the game. Then during the week, we'll hear about fines. I saw something like 7 million in fines, player fines in 2021 and 21 million, something like that last year. So maybe that's actually the reason for these rule changes.
Maybe. All right, that's a wrap for the Audible. We appreciate you all. Help us grow our YouTube channel. But first, check out footballguys.com, our Dynasty, a rookie guide, all the content that you'd ever want available at footballguys.com. Here in about a month, we're going to start up our daily newsletter again with takes written by, guess who's in the lead? Bob Harris, Cecil Lammey, Sigmund Bloom, Joe Bryant. So all four of us be working on that newsletter this year. We're very proud of that product and have been for years and years and years. A hallmark of footballguys.com has been dating back to the cheatsheets.net days. What's the daily newsletter? It is the daily newsletter. Very proud to be on that as well every year with Sigmund, now with Bob Harris, and of course, the great Joe Bryant. He is Sigmund Bloom. You follow him on Twitter at Sigmund Bloom. I'm just glad I got my lav mic to work. I spent, I was like $250 on these lav mics. Fantastic product. Like I've been crushing it here at the combine, the owners meetings. Now that I figured out how to get it used on StreamYard, Alfredo's like, thank you. Quality. Now wash your hair. Anyway, shout out Alfredo. I saw Joey in the chat, right? Love all you, right? I'll text Jason Pott, Stoner Degenerate. So he needs to get in here as well. Luke was in here as well. Speaking of Pott.
Yeah.
Like, okay. Joe's like, hey, buddy, great show from the owners' meetings. Can you stop talking about the marijuana, please? The devil's lettuce, buddy.
Yeah, if it's illegal in your state, then otherwise mute. If it's illegal, mute this next part.
Yes, I know. Florida, I don't know what the legalization is. So anyway, he is Sigmund. I am Cecil. 19 years, baby. 19 years going on of the Audible. We appreciate you all and love the love out there. So keep it up. Drop a comment down below. Follow Sigmund. Follow me. Stay tuned. And as always, besides staying tuned, I want you to stay frosty, baby.